This is Wallpapering Woke. We have some great panelists here today. We're going to do a short introduction on my end, and they're going to go into detail about something with their organization or company so you can get to know them a little bit better. And at the end, when everyone has gone through their chat, we will have a Q&A session, okay? And bear with me sometimes because I am a Mac girl and I'm not a PC girl, but I can do it. Good so far? Yeah? Okay. And then here. Okay, got it. Okay, so first up, well, before we go into that, my name is Ayana Zara. I own Ayana Denise Skin, and we heal skin through education, products, and services. We are based out of New Mexico, and I'm very happy to be here. I am one of the Changing Faces ladies. There are 13 of us, and each one of us is phenomenal in our own right, and I'm extremely honored to be here today. First up, we have Sophie, and we're going to let her have the floor.
Great, thank you. Can you all see me? Okay. So yeah, it's like sit. So hi, my name is Sophie Halliday. I'm co-founder and educator of Shantae Alliance. We are a Stevens World Peace Foundation funded program, and we are in our third year of operation. And I was asked to talk a little bit about how we help to build school communities of belonging. And I think I see some students here, so thank you for coming. It's really nice to see you. So our organization is devoted to supporting educators and students develop the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to become effective DEI practitioners within their school community. We do this in several ways, and I was also asked to address how we seek to encourage cultural transformation, and so hopefully you kind of pick up from the work that we do, the ways that we try to promote that within our school communities. So the first thing that we do is we start with ourselves. We do a lot of, inner identity work. We explore ourselves, and we try to see how our identities, how we as people were formed, and how that might actually impact our perspectives, what kind of privileges we may have grown up with, and what kind of implicit biases we might have developed because of our upbringing. So we take a look at things like your gender identity, your sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, things like that, and how that might have impacted who you became as a person. Another thing that we do, which we find to be really important, is we encourage our educators and our students to get together, network, and provide spaces where we're learning from local as well as national expert practitioners and organizations. And we find this work to be so important because not only should we be learning amongst ourselves with our peers, but it's really important to learn from folks who have been doing this work for a really long time and who have more expertise than us. Another thing that we do is we provide open spaces for our students and our educators. This space is really important because we find that our practitioners need a really safe and comfortable place where they can kind of air whatever is on their mind. Again, super important to do this work sustainably. One of the most important things that we do is we train our practitioners to be effective leaders in facilitated dialogue. I think it's not lost on any of you that any kind of lasting cultural change can only happen on the basis of trust and relationships. And so we find that skillful facilitated dialogue is really, really, really important to do this work effectively. I'll talk a little bit more about this later in my next slide, but our students actually lead the way in creating and implementing school action projects in their school community. And their focus is to help to create more inclusive communities within their schools so that everyone feels seen and understood and nobody feels invisible or marginalized because of their background. Finally, we do organize an annual Hawaii DEI conference that is focused for students and educators. We've been doing this for 6 years, and we're going to do this in person this year, so we're super excited about that. All right, so our students' work, so I alluded to this a little bit before, but you can totally find out everything that our students have done that we're so proud of on our website, shantyalliance.org. But mainly the two things that they do is they help to facilitate dialogue with adults in the school community as well as their peers, their classmates, or to raise awareness around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And another thing that they do, which I think is super awesome, is they take a look at the policy systems and structures in place at their schools, and they try to advocate for change so that those structures and policies become more inclusive. And again, please check their work out at shantyalliance.org. So our impact has been, I think, pretty good so far, and I have to give a shout out to my colleague Kayla Hostelin, who is in the audience. She's providing the survey data for the results that we're seeing. So because of the work that they've done at our organization and also attending the DEI conference and doing the work at their schools, they find that they are much more kind of like aware of who they are as people. They feel more connected with their peers and their teachers because of the work that they do, and they're much more aware of civil rights and social justice issues that impact their communities. So we're super proud of them, and of course we have so much more work to do and much more to do to improve what we provide for our students and educators, but we're pretty happy with those results. I'm not really sure I'm going to have time to talk about cultural transformation. Okay, 1 minute. So I hopefully will get to talk a little bit more about this in the panel, but I'll just kind of summarize and say cultural transformation can only take place if you do the inner work and the outer work. And inner work is self-exploration. You know, do you know who you are truly? And what has influenced you to become who you are as a person? So I think that's like super critical work that we hope that our practitioners engage in a compassionate and loving way for ourselves. And then the outer work, of course, is in taking what you learn and actually practicing what you preach. So I think it has to be the balance of those two. So with that, I'll leave you to the next person.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from
hello everybody. My name is Haruka Nagaonakase. I'm from Japan, and I founded the organization to support immigrants in Japan. Okay, so I put two logos. A little bit small, but I found it diversity is for non-profit and design level is for profit. I have two organizations, but both are related to building an inclusive society. And both organization is based in Okazaki City in Aichi Prefecture, which is located next to Toyota City. And Toyota City, we have Toyota Motor Company. So we got a large population of immigrants who work in factories. So the inclusive society is a big important issue for us. Okay, and yeah, there is a graph of the number of immigrants in Japan. As you know, the Japanese population gaining ages, yeah. So the less people, and then we got more immigrants in Japan. Since 2013, yeah, the number of immigrants is increasing, but our population is shrunk by 1 million in these 10 years. So yeah, so we need immigrants. We need to make the society inclusive society. Okay, but of course there are so many issues to make the society change. So we are offering the services for companies and local communities. And what we do for company is, the first thing is to clarify the evaluation criteria for immigrant employees. Why? Because the Japanese company doesn't know how to deal with the immigrants. Because most of us are Japanese, so we don't know how to evaluate the people from other countries. Of course, like company asked us to support the language, the Japanese language as well. But if you can't speak the language very well, you got underestimated. Even if you're skilled, or even you have a dream or something, just people can't understand. So yeah, we support them to create a new evaluation system. And also, we train the Japanese teacher. The Japanese language is also, of course, the language. But when we speak, we need a cultural background, so we need to understand how to behave when you communicate with people. So we need to train not only the language, but with the culture. So we teach them, the Japanese teacher, how to do in the company. Right? And also, in a local community, during the COVID, it gets so hard for us to do in the service in the local community. We used to do like joining the local events and to get to know each other, but during the COVID, we couldn't do that. So we just started the online course to support the multicultural understanding. So immigrants will be the guide to introduce their backgrounds, language, and culture, and Japanese attend that. And then they can share the old values and cultures. Then, like, yeah, in Japanese society, it is just so hard to share. Just you going to work and going shopping, but you never can talk, right? So it helps to understand each other. And in this course, we just try to have a conversation together. So we can ask and why you eat that food and why you behave that. Just we can share and ask. Then we can understand, that's why you do that. That's why you do this. So those kind of things we are providing. And yeah, so then people can understand, the differences is good. Difference is something bringing us new ideas and new changes So Japanese, we have to notice. Not so many people notice that being different is good. Especially for the Japanese people, being same is normal. We have just black hair and we are behaving the same way. So being different is a bit hard for Japanese. So by natural, we can learn, it's fine. We are all different and it is good. So meeting the people from different countries just support us. The understanding diversity is good and we can change the Japanese society too. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rupa. I'm getting the hang of it. Alright, next we have Janelle. Remote please here.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today to speak with all of you. This topic is a passion and my work and mine. And today I wanted to share with you briefly some of my personal experience as being a Japanese American in a foreign country of Japan, as well as my professional experience in the trenches as a former DE&I leader for a top technology company. You know, EY is actually no stranger to the topic of gender equality and developing solutions to bridge the gender divide. We started Women Fast Forward platform, which I'm a committee member of, to address a challenge. And this year, the World Economic Forum predicted it would take 267 years to reach gender economic equality. And I'm going to ask all of you, can we wait 267 years? Can our daughters wait? Can our nieces wait? Can our granddaughters wait? I don't think so. And at EY, we're not going to wait. So, the answer is our Women Fast Forward platform. And it's a platform that engages our employees, our clients, and our communities to advance gender equality. And we design specific programs to bridge the gap and to make it happen, such as Women 20, creating policy for gender input into the W20. Also, helping women scale their businesses in the Entrepreneur Leading Women Network. And I currently lead as a global leader our Women Athletes Business Network, which actually supports athletes that transition from their sport, top Olympian medalists, into entrepreneurship or business roles. And we actually came up with a study, and the study was really meaningful. It was called Women Fast Forward, the time for gender parity is now. And we came up with some ideas based on data to accelerate this 276-year projection. And it was a survey of men and women leaders in 400 top global companies from around the world to identify the biggest barriers and accelerators to women career advancement in the workplace. And it was very promising. We came up with some really encouraging data from our survey. And through our survey, we've identified 3 ways to speed up independently and together to help speed up the trajectory of women's advancement. First, show visible career paths to women. Enlighten the path to leadership. Women have different ambitions, motivations, and interests and challenges. So we need to, as a company, probe those interests and match them and provide skill building in which positions that they're interested in. We need to also share the criteria of what it takes to get promoted as well and be very transparent about that. Second, flexible work practices, creating that kind of policy. So speed up cultural change with progressive corporate policies are really critical to move the needle. Most importantly, you need to measure it as well. We need to measure the productivity metrics, because you know why? Data drives decisions, especially for top business leaders. And number 3, build supportive workplaces to eliminate consciousness and unconscious bias as well. And I'm sure you've heard this, but CEO and top management is critical for anything to happen. But how do we define, management commitment and real commitment by CEOs? Real commitment is allocating resources to DE&I, allocating the budgets, allocating the resources and people on how to execute that to make it happen. And it was very, very encouraging. Within these 3 best practices, these 3 strategies kind of rose to the top to really accelerate women's career advancement. Number 1, sponsorship. Have everyone heard of sponsorship? Okay, so this is the new way to fast track women's careers. And don't get me wrong, mentors matter, right? You absolutely need them, but they're not necessarily the ticket to the top, right? Mentors give, whereas sponsors invest. And I'm a product of being sponsored. I know firsthand that my mentor Ray, he was the global HR leader at the time of Asia Pacific. He created this job opportunity in Japan to work globally and bring positive change to the culture. And he believed in my potential more than I believed in myself, quite honestly. And he took my career to the next level. And I hesitated. I didn't think I could do it. I never had done a D&I role before, in America or even in Japan. But he says, Janelle, Japan is going to change your life. And he was right. It's been an opportunity of a lifetime to live and work globally and help create positive change in the workplace. Second, within the flexible work company policy, we have a new initiative that we call wellbeing. You've probably heard, this term is very, very popular in terms of focusing on creating that culture of well-being. And we've established a committee to address this to help upskill our employees around resilience. Also, tailoring this roadmap to their needs. So it's a very critical initiative right now that we've been very focused on, which is not just communicating between the manager and the employee, but also some peer-to-peer mentoring as well, so learning from each other how we're, handling these challenges and getting through working remotely or, any type of challenges as a result of the pandemic. And then third, inclusive leadership. You probably have heard this. We've gone beyond the unconscious bias into how we can lead inclusively and create an inclusive culture. And first, obviously reducing biases, people understanding themselves, any hidden personal agendas that we may have, also long-term commitment to company change, and building collaborative teams with open mindsets. So that's part of our inclusive leadership. It's not just from the top, it's all across all levels of the company right now. So I know this is just a short time, and I would love to go on and on, but anyway, these are some of the top 3 ways to advance and speed up gender equality in the workplace. And my call to action to all of you is these ideas presented in our report are recommended accelerators, but they're not the only ones. I think all of you have some great practices out there, so let's work together to speed up the clock and think about personally what you can do to accelerate women's progress in the workplace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janelle. I'm just writing a few more notes on what you just said.
Right, and that spot up there for a long time, and I kind of ignored it.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's what it's for.
All right. Next up is Nora, and I'm gonna pull her.
Warm specific greetings to you all. My name is Nora Swan. I'm a New Zealand-born Samoan Hawaiian and I'm a creative entrepreneur. So I work in fashion and social service. Can I just acknowledge all the women on the panel here who are championing inclusion and diversity in their own respective industries. And to my sister Ayana, who's our moderator. So go us. So I founded my company, Nora Swan Limited, nearly 11 years ago. And everything I do is, I basically love fashion. Fashion is my passion. It's a cliche, 100%, but I really own it, and I love what I do every single day. 6 years ago, I then founded a social enterprise called Dressed in Confidence, where we teach self-love and self-worth with fashion as the medium, and that's now slowly gone into a charity. I also started the Pacific Fusion Fashion Show, which is the largest high-end Pacific fashion show in New Zealand, which promotes Pacific designers and Pacific models. And then lastly, the Swan, so the first ever Pacific-owned modeling agency in New Zealand. So as you can tell, love what I do. When I first started out in business, there were very few Pacific women who had sustainable businesses in New Zealand. Even more so, a very small percentage who had successful businesses in the fashion industry. So after testing the market, I found a gap which was to proudly represent Pacific fashion, so designs and models, in an industry that was constantly telling us that we weren't good enough. So it was really hard to find opportunities to build my business because I was an outsider. I basically won a competition because I loved fashion. So when I went into fashion, the industry, no one wanted to help me. So I basically had to create events and initiatives to help grow Pacific fashion in New Zealand. And what I found was that there were so many other Pacific Islanders who had the same feelings about fashion. So since I created my initiatives, 500 other Pacific and Māori creatives, so designers, models, entertainers, small business owners, volunteers, fashion enthusiasts who had an interest in fashion as a career or hobby have come through all of the initiatives that I've started. So I currently have 2 full-time staff, and I'm in the process of employing another 2 to 3 staff to meet the demand. I also have 12 contractors for all the projects that I run, and then I employ people from this database depending on the project requirements. So what I was finding in mainstream was that no one was interested in Pacific stories. We didn't have capital to start up businesses, so we were made to feel like it was a space that we couldn't occupy. People also thought we were business savvy, and that's why a lot of Pacific people who are in the fashion industry do fashion as a hobby or a passion. A passion project. Also, our models, we were told we weren't skinny enough, we weren't pretty enough, too short, too loud, just never good enough. And just before COVID, I've been really privileged, and I've been able to have conversations with people at the top of fashion in New Zealand, and I feel like I'm probably the only Pacific person who's been able to reach that height. But I found whatever I did was never good enough. So how did I show them that I wasn't going to go away? I use the challenges to fuel my passion to keep on fighting. Put your hand up if you've kind of been in this kind of situation and you know where I'm coming from. So I created advisory teams within the industry to discuss topics of importance to the Pacific fashion industry with the goal to grow our presence in mainstream fashion. I continue to have courageous conversations. I proudly promote and create opportunities for the Pacific fashion industry. I'm currently wearing a design from one of our designers. Educate the Pacific fashion industry through capability building workshops so we can be successful too. And I question people and organizations who tick boxes. It really pisses me off. Where do I draw my strength from? I'm a proud Christian. I love God and I love Jesus Christ. God has been at the forefront as I've navigated through some really scary storms, but I'm so grateful that He has opened up doors for me. And then my mum recently turned 70, and my mum has a really high standard. So I think that's where I understood the importance of self-worth and self-belief. And I've got to thank the Spice Girls. Because in high school, and everyone who knows me now, they can't believe that this is the one from high school. I used to be a real shy and introvert, but the Spice Girls taught me about girl power. So where to from here? I'm going to continue to challenge the status quo and be disruptive while boldly walking with mana, knowing that my ancestors are walking with me. Paptai lava kahabi.
Thank you, Laura. You made us cry. And you still finished on time. All right. Next, we're going to hear from Beth.
Hi everyone, I'm Beth Whitehead. I've been on a lot of panels, and one of the important lessons I learned was never follow someone like Nora, so I quit. I don't have a PowerPoint. I just wanted to talk story with you. A little bit about me. My name is Beth Whitehead. I'm with American Savings Bank. I am the Chief Administrative Officer, and I am in charge of our employee experience and what I call the guardian of our culture. I started my career as a lawyer. I hated being a lawyer, and I went into banking. When I was in my 30s, I worked at a bank in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was promoted to be the general counsel of that company, and I was by being the general counsel, I was on the management committee of the company. In that room was me and 7 white guys who were all 55 plus. And so I was a good 20 years younger than everyone in the room and the only female. And it was quite intimidating, and it was the first time ever that a female had been on the executive committee of our company. And I was petrified every time I walked in the room. I was afraid to speak up, and it was an intimidating experience. Our CEO pulled me into his office a couple months after I had been promoted, and he told me, he was like, "Do you think I make a lot of mistakes?" And I was like, "Well, of course, career-ending question." I was like, "No, sir, I don't think you ever make any mistakes." He goes, "Well, then quit feeling like you're a mistake in the room and management committee. I picked you for a purpose, you belong there, and your voice is important, and I want you to speak up." And that was actually a turning point for me, because I suddenly realized that even though I inside felt really afraid, I needed to be brave for all the other women that might come behind me, and I shouldn't be the only woman that ever sat in that room. And so fast forward, I ended up, was in charge of mergers and acquisitions for that company. We bought over 200 companies, and we grew exponentially. And then we actually one day sold ourselves to SunTrust Bank. At the time we sold ourselves, there were actually by then 12 people on our executive committee, and half of them were females. So it was pretty cool to suddenly be joined by other females. I got recruited to come to American Savings Bank, and I moved here in 2008. And when I joined ASB, we were already a company that had 70% female, and our management team was half-half. And I was like, wow, I'm starting at a really great place. And that's one of the amazing things about Hawaii. Hawaii is already a diverse place, already an accepting place. And so we come at working on diversity and inclusion from a place that we've leapfrogged a lot of companies in America that are just now starting to think about how do we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, when I got to ASB, I was amazed by a lot of the things we had, but I was also saddened by some of the things we didn't have. We really did not focus on our employee experience. We just expected everyone, we pay you, you come in, you do work, what are you griping about? And so we spent a lot of effort over the first few years that I was there working on our employee experience. When I joined, our employee engagement score was at 37%. For those of you that are out of school, I'll tell you that's failing no matter what subject it is. And we thought this was a shame. We have wonderful people here. They should love their job. They should feel valued. And so we started really working on how do we create a great place to work. Today, our engagement scores are historically in the 90% range. For the last 13 years, we've been selected one of the best places to work in Hawaii. We don't have the resources of an EY, but we really do follow a lot of the work and the great research that companies like EY are doing. And we try to actually build those programs with the scale that we can do. We have 1,200 employees, so we can't do the same things that EY does, but we can do a lot of amazing things. We created a women's network because one of the things we realized is often we don't support each other. Even though there were 70% female in our company, we weren't all supporting each other. And often, you have a promotion and a female gets chosen, and the people that support her least are the females on her team, not the males on her team. And so we really started addressing, we should empower each other and we should support each other. We first started out with the Diversity Council. They now have renamed themselves to ASB Has Ideas, but they felt like diversity was too narrow. And IDEAS stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Allyship. I got it wrong, I can't even spell ideas. Diversity and safety, allyship and safety. And that group really spends a lot of time looking at how are we making everyone feel welcome? How are we celebrating all the rich cultures and the different perspectives that we have at ASB? By giving that group reign and not telling them what they can and can't do, it's really been great. And I get a lot of other executives that ask me, like, well, what if they do something offensive? What if they do something and put it on your social media? They have the passwords to our social media. They run our social media. We don't tell them and censor what they can say. And so a lot of times people are like, how does your legal let them? I'm like, well, because we told them to. And it's really a thing of we want everyone to feel empowered to actually do the right thing. And so one of the questions I had been asked was, what pushback do you get? We get customer complaints from time to time. We get complaints that that our customers don't agree that we are supporting gay pride, that our customers don't agree that we, before it was a federal holiday, had Juneteenth off. But we're okay getting that criticism as long as we think we're doing the right thing. And so for us, there's a lot of initiatives out there now on diversity and inclusion, and of course now finally the investment community has taken note and are actually requiring companies to report about these things. But I'm really proud that we've been doing these things for 12 plus years before they ever became required. And every day we're looking at how we can be better, and we really use the voice of our teammates to tell us, hey, I think you should look into this, or I think we should do this. And really letting it be grassroots to me is part of the secret sauce. I now have to stop.
Thank you very much, Beth. I never know if they really see my cards. It looks kind of like where it's not interrupting them, but it's like maybe they'll see the red in the corner of their eye.
When it jiggles, I saw.
Yeah, I jiggled it, did it. All right, thank you very much to all of our panelists for showing us some insight on what makes you so phenomenal in your industries. I think we all got so much out of the conversation, out of the chat so far. And we're going to continue the conversation. So I want you to think about some questions that you have for any of our panelists. And think about it for just like a few seconds. So think about what you want to ask Sophie, Aruka, Janelle, Nora, or Beth. want to have the floor first? Yes.
This is for whomever on the panel, but I was just curious if the idea of mentorship versus sponsorship, that's the first time I've heard of that term, and I'm kind of trying to grow my company. And I have several mentors who have been amazing, but I'm just curious, how would you go about securing a sponsor, or where would you look for something like that? Or do you ask? I guess I'm asking.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, obviously some companies provide a formal program of sponsorship, but then many don't. So I think a lot of times to find a sponsor, sometimes your mentor actually becomes a sponsor, right? Once you develop that relationship, once you share what your expectations are as a membership, and then they can share with you what they can contribute. So that's what happened to me. Like all of my sponsors originally were mentors, and it's just continuing to build that relationship. But at the same time, they're going to be talking about you to other leaders, right? Externally or internally, they may position up, they may get you promoted. But at the same time, you also have to perform because it's the reputation at stake. So that's just kind of my goal. Sometimes mentors do, become sponsors.
Beth, can you also go a little bit more in detail as someone who is in the banks, in the financial industry? Because it's not as if there are women who want you to sponsor their business, but what about women who are coming into the company? Is there any sort of like sponsoring that can be done, like for different programs to help strengthen their leadership skills or anything?
Yeah, one of the things that we find very important is our onboarding experience and how to actually bring people in and make them feel included and welcomed on day one. We also actually assign every incoming new teammate an ambassador, who is their buddy that is in a different department, not someone that we assign to them that works with them daily, but someone that's in a different department, so they actually get to know other people in the company. And we really do encourage people to participate in our leadership programs. And often, I can tell you it's been one of my passions in building our leadership programs, because we did not have any when I came to ASB in 2008. And now I would say that we are as good as anyone in Hawaii with our leadership programs, and maybe better than a few. But we often see women are hesitant to sign up. And so it has been my quest, I'll say, to actually kind of voluntold someone to, hey, you're going to sign up for this and you're going to do it. But often our new females need nudges. And so I think that, and we always encourage the ambassadors, when we see that someone is kind of shy and not really sticking their neck out much, we actually encourage their ambassadors to encourage them. But I think that's something that we all can be mindful of, is encouraging each other to go take those opportunities, and starting your own business to go and go to networking events where you actually meet other women that are like looking to sponsor other women. And so I think that it's really hard to go out there and just take that first step. And especially when you walk in a room like this and you didn't know anyone, and just walking around networking it's really easy just to leave when the social event starts. And so I really encourage women to actually, even just getting to know someone, you never know how you're going to help them. And I think that actually strengthens women and gives them confidence.
Yes. Yes.
So I have some questions, but I first want to say thank you to everybody on the panel. And I especially just want to shout out to Nora. I'm so inspired by your story, and I learned so much of the family and ancestors and your culture in your story. And so much of it resonates, as a home. But I want to thank you. And part two is, what do you want to do? Now that you've learned about all the obstacles you've overcome and the collaborations you have made. So tell us about Nora 2.0. What are your plans? And people in the audience who have, for sure, interests in helping people get involved in your collaborations.
First of all, thank you for your kind words. I didn't expect to cry. So, as I said earlier on, like I've now been in this game for over 2 years now, so it's really nice to not do a hard sell anymore because now government's paying attention, they've seen proof of my concepts, my events are quite pretty good. Good reputation in New Zealand, quite successful, and I'm finding it easier to find partners and sponsorship now. So, as someone had said here on the panel, if your events are good, then your partners are good as well. So I'm in the process of setting up a shop back in New Zealand. So we, with my Dress and Confidence program, we help beneficiaries get into the workplace. So we predominantly work with Indigenous, like Pacific and Māori. And so we've had a lot of other not-for-profits donate a whole heap of clothing for us. So what we want to do is, once mainly women, if they come in our programs, then they can get a working wardrobe, basically, just to help them go back into the workplace. So helping them dress appropriately for job interviews in the different spaces that you go into. We're also in we've got our own office space, and we've outgrown the space, so we're in the process of moving as well. So some really cool things coming my way, and it's nice to not work so hard anymore.
A follow-up question that is going to get to the lecture.
Hi, this is whoever, but as students, how can we, as students, hold our schools accountable for incorporating individuality? Because sometimes I feel like it's sometimes like a wallpaper or very selective or something that's being done out of a performative way. So how do we help our community at school be more of a place that is more inclusive and equitable and more diverse?
Join the Shanti Alliance. Sorry, I'm half kidding, but I really hope that your school considers joining us. I think there's no easy answer. There's no magic bullet, like you do one thing and then everything changes. Again, it's really about kind of doing your own self-exploration and why is this work important to you? Who are you as a person and how does it resonate with you? I think it's really important to figure that out. It's also important to do that work because you have to figure out what privileges have I grown up with? What blinders have I grown up with that I need to overcome to kind of, overcome the deep-seated patterns in your behavior and your decision-making, right? That might inadvertently contribute to oppressive systems. So that's one thing.
Can I add to that? Make some noise, connect with like-minded girls, and make a lot of noise. Even if there's a quiver in your voice, it's not coming down, it's like me, make some noise.
And I think, thank you, Nora, that is super important. And I think that, kind of piggybacking off of what Beth was saying, you have to create a supportive network of people that you can work with and fall back on because, one voice might not maybe easy to ignore, but if you have a lot of voices, and your teachers and administrators, they love you. They would just bend over backwards to make sure that you folks are, heard. And so many voices, I think, advocating for change, but in a, I would say, respectful and productive way is I think, a really good approach for you to take.
Our panel couldn't get any better because we now have puppies.
Yes, are you fine?
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Crystal. I have a lot of friends in DEI work, higher education, corporate, tech. The work they do itself is diversity, inclusion, because it's not inclusive in the marketplace. So they're doing that work as founders. And they all get burnt out, they all get tired, they all get burdened, they all get sad, sometimes feel hopeless. And I'm wondering, what are your tools for healing, especially in courageous conversations that we were talking about. These conversations like these get heavy, and then we don't have a place to put it. Like, what are your systems of healing? I don't want to use self-care because sometimes we're doing this work together, and there is room for self, but self within community is really important. So how do you manage that?
That's a really great question. And just to like pinpoint on the way that you explained that so well about, we have these conversations, but where do you put it afterwards? And how do you process it? And where do you go from there? And, who do you talk to who's maybe doing similar work who needs to do it? So that's a really great question that we really do have to deal with that. I was thinking maybe Nora could also maybe lead that conversation given some of the work that we did this week. Last night.
I think I did mention in my presentation that I do event management as well. It's really, really full on. And so before I came here, I ran 3 major fashion events in New Zealand within a month. And then I knew I was coming here and it was going to be intense 2-week programs. My sister's on in our cohort will agree on that. After this, I'm going on a holiday. And I guess my challenge for myself is to just turn off and try and don't even look at my phone. But I generally do go away and just have a weekend off. I think that's a good thing when you're an entrepreneur, like the flexibility. So I do just go away on the weekend and absolutely nothing. Yeah, I don't even use my brain, which is really good. Anyone else want to add to that?
Again, I would just add that, and so in my career, when I was sharing about being at my first bank, the piece I did not share is that I am also the first openly gay person that had ever been in this company. And I was afraid to speak up and take on social issues. And even in this company that was very conservative and not welcoming, I would get so frustrated because I would think that I had made some progress on maybe they're more accepting, and then someone would say something very inappropriate, and it's devastating. And people that are doing work out in DEI, they're taking on such a big thing. And it is so easy to forget all the amazing progress that we have made because it's hard and because it's big. And if you guys figure that out, please let me know too, because sometimes it's soul crushing. And you think we've come so far and something happens, In America, there's a change in an election, there's a change in the Supreme Court, and it all comes crashing down on you again. And it's heavy and it's hard, and I think that the best we can do in those times is lift each other up and support each other, and just remember there's so many of us that are trying to do the right thing that it's eventually got to eventually make a difference. That's the way I sleep at night.
So you want to add to that?
Sure, and I don't have an answer to your question at all, because I think a lot of people just sort of fall back on, take care of yourself, like self-care. Well, how are you supposed to take care of yourself if the systems are like oppressing you, right? So I kind of resonated with Laura there. Definitely I try to unplug. I sort of have to really force myself to get off of social media. I'm working on my mental hygiene. We take showers every day. Do the same thing for your mind, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I always fall back on is my relationships. I have a core group of sisters that I always rely on. When I'm feeling down, when I see the news and when I see something happen that's just not right. And so I think one of the biggest things that we hope that folks get out of Shanti Alliance is that our educators and our students who often feel really alone doing the work. They're like, nobody gets it at my school. Like, how come I'm like the only one? Am I wrong? Like, they feel kind of gaslighted, you know, and then so just to be able to bring all those folks together from all sorts of different schools, and then just to be able to share about common experiences, and just kind of like lighten the load, and where they can just kind of like be themselves, because they feel like they have to kind of obscure parts of themselves that they think doesn't fit the mold. I think that can be incredibly kind of like liberating and affirming. So again, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to your question, but I think just developing, you know, like falling back on your relationships where people truly see you and value you, I think can be incredibly restorative. And then just intentionally shutting things down and having time to take care of yourself, I think is really, really important.
Perfect, thank you so much, Sophie. I know a couple of you all have a few more questions. We are out of time. However, our wonderful panelists will probably stick around if they have time. And please do not hesitate to approach them, introduce yourself, and ask your question. I wanted to just summarize everything, especially on the self-care note or self-work. I'll call it shadow work, actually. You know, there are a lot of things that we learn growing up what a woman is and the things that women need to do. And we have all these checklists to accomplish throughout the week and the day and the month and the year. And then when you have kids, let's add that layer on to that as well. But a lot of that is going to be it's going to be some restructuring in your brain about, you know, what does that look like for me? How do I rest? How do I process things that I really need to process instead of letting it pile up, which is so easy to do. But you've got to take that time to get rid of some things. I'm a huge believer in Eastern medicine, so I do acupuncture regularly, but that's also because I heal people constantly. And I take that energy in, and if I don't get rid of it, a lot of things are going to happen to me and I'll break down. So look at some other types of therapy that maybe you haven't looked at before that you feel will work for you. And talk to some people. Change your circle around a little bit and see what's out there for you so you can really do the work on yourself as well. I want to thank everyone for coming here today. Thank you to all of our wonderful panelists who took such great care in answering questions and letting us understand what your organizations are, who you are in the organization, and where you're going in the meantime, and really just encouraging us and inspiring us. So let's give a round of applause.